Thank you for joining us this morning. Let's get the show started. The spike in the number of confirmed coronavirus cases has become worrisome, and the federal government is doing all it can to curb the spread. In fact, the Minister of Health during the meeting this week stated that the majority of the fatalities recorded were in persons over the age of 50 and those who had pre-existing ailments. But the WHO shocked the whole world yesterday by saying that the virus had moved to a new and dangerous stage. Meanwhile, many countries, including Nigeria, are trying to open up the economy. So, where exactly do we stand? How safe are we? What do we need to be doing to make sure that we stay safe? Well, we have with us in the studio a lecturer in genetics, Lagos State University, Dr. Olushola Shokefun. Good morning. And joining us via Skype will be Professor Titus Ibekwe, who is a professor of otorhinolaryngology. That word again. Good morning, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. And let me begin with Dr. Shokefun. So, does it look to you like we're heading for another lockdown?
Well, seemingly that's the way it looks. The world is certainly in a hurry, and the reasons are that we have been locked down for too long, and the reasons are that we have a dearth of knowledge, or we have the poor understanding of the virus and what it can do, or because, for instance, in the US, elections are coming, so the economy must start to boom again as a campaign tool. So these are the possible explanations. Rather than you don't understand what the virus is capable of doing. I was in the eye of the storm. I saw it all in Italy before coming back to Nigeria. As such, I just see that we may be heading for another lockdown. Although at this time, it may be essential to also put palliatives in place for the average Nigerian, like it is done all over the world.
You said, I know we want to go to Professor Ibekwe, but you said you were in Italy.
Yes, sir.
How long ago was that?
I got back to Nigeria 20th of March. I came with the last flight, KLM last flight.
And you immediately went into isolation, I suppose.
Okay. So,
don't panic.
No, I'm not panicking.
He's fine.
I know some people who will be watching. He was in Italy? No. So we needed to clear that. But what did you see there?
Well, in the developed world, you only hear the siren when there's a medical emergency. And where I stay, the siren sounded very often that it became a staccato of sounds, and which tells you that something really serious is happening. We have not had that in Nigeria. So, to a large extent, a person who has not seen it may not appreciate the gravity of what the thing can actually do.
Indeed, there's these rumors that a lot of those who even have it are hiding. They don't even want to be identified as, hey, you have this ailment. And at the end of the day, that's how it's spreading. That's unconfirmed, though. But is it a question of understanding?
Yeah, awareness, enlightenment, understanding the gravity,
Yes.
The risk is not to you alone, persons around you who may also not be who may be more susceptible than you, especially when you are an asymptomatic carrier. That's really, really a problem. So,
Professor Ibekwe, the situation we have in the country right now, everybody gradually is opening up. Lagos was supposed to allow the worship centers to open beginning yesterday into tomorrow. But Lagos rescinded that decision and said it's still going to have to study some things. The airlines were supposed to kick off from, I think, tomorrow,
21st.
from 21st. But again, they're supposed to start thinking about opening from the 21st. But again, that is now being looked at again. So that date's again been moved. Based on what we're hearing from the WHO and what we have on ground, what do you think is our stand as a nation?
Yeah, thank you very much. Sincerely speaking, we're really in a precarious situation as it is right now. That's the reality. Because you recall, we're trying to balance lives with livelihoods. And that's what led to opening up our space to ensure that the economy does not crash. Because this is a disease of both nature and nurture. So apart from handling the disease and its spread, also balancing the economy is very important in order to be able to have a good containment of the illness. But it is obvious that the populace is not really abiding strictly by the rules and regulations guiding this simple dynamics, and that is really making it a very dangerous situation. You walk out of the street, you go to places, public institutions, you see that people have jettisoned these simple rules: face mask, physical distancing, etc. And if you juxtapose this to the information reaching us, especially from our own NCDC and the Presidential Task Force and the Minister of Health, that even those who appear to be susceptible in our country here are 50 and above, rather than over 60, 65, the truly aged that has been established. And of course, those who are having underlying illness. Again, you take into cognizance the case incidences, how it's been rising in the recent time. We're hitting 700 and something per day. That means very soon that we'll be able to get to 1,000 market identification per day. That's a red flag. It's not a good news at all, But the only thing that I can say that we're still hanging on, which is a string of good hope, is that it appears most of the cases that we have here happen to fall within the realm of the mild cases. But this should not be taken for granted because we're having fatality. Okay? It's very obvious. And that is why if there is need for us to go back to lockdown, that can happen, as my colleague over there said. We have a scientific team who are working with NCDC and co, monitoring the situation. And it's like trying to create a balance. And once one side outweighs the other, you have to bring up another measure. Because if everybody has strictly abide by these rules and regulations of simple respiratory hygiene, physical distancing, etc., I'm sure that we would have been able to curtail the case incidences. But again, if you look at the other side or the other divide, you realize that now we are testing reasonably well. Knowing full well that we have over 30 testing sites in the country now. So we are testing better. We are already into the community also testing. So we expect that we'll be able to identify more cases. But it's not a good news in any way that this case keep on rising on a daily basis. And you see people flagrantly flouting the rules and regulations. It's putting us in danger and in serious, precarious situation.
Now, Professor, how can we get the people to take this matter seriously? The exemplary countries such as Taiwan, for example, or Iceland, they didn't go into lockdown at all. It was business as usual, but they listened to their health authorities and did exactly what they were told to do. Well, Professor, let's just take a short break before you respond to that. Welcome back. Yes, Professor, I was saying that there were places where there were no lockdowns at all. So how do we get Nigerians to actually buy into this and believe how dangerous it actually can be?
The first responsibility lies with each and every one of us. I think self-discipline is very important here because whereas you advise but you refuse to take the advice, it will all just land into a waste of time. So each and every one of us must be awake to our responsibilities. Everybody belongs to a home, to a family. I think the enlightened ones and those who believe within the society should take it as personal responsibility to educate others within and around them. So this is very key, because it is in so doing that we'll be able to permeate even to the grassroots. Then the strategy on enlightenment program maybe has to be modified. I have consistently said that yes, radio, television, very key means of communication. But the reality is that we know that a lot of people do not even have access to radio and television. And that speaks volume. That we must also append other addendum that will help us to penetrate into the hinterlands, get down to the basics. We utilize the opinion leaders that individuals and group of individuals respect for what they stand. We use such people in propagating this message. And in fact, you talk of religious houses and the religious leaders, they have a key role to play, and traditional rulers, because their followers always listen to them. There's no religious preaching that must end without bringing in COVID, because that is what is ravaging the entire world right now. And thirdly, enforcement is very important. That enforcement has to be done with human face, with a lot of respect, because you see how security agents harass individuals and the populace, some of them anyway, it leaves a sour taste in the mouth. So they should see that we are trying to protect the nation. We are trying to protect our lives and livelihood, and do this gently in a manner that people will accept this, the information will permeate, and that is the only way we'll be able to do this. As you rightly said, countries like Taiwan, they did nothing extraordinary. In fact, they refused to go into lockdown, etc. And given the fact that they are neighbors to even China, where this problem started, it was just discipline. The entire populace were disciplined down to the teeth by ensuring that they kept to these simple rules and regulations of respiratory hygiene, physical distancing, etc. And that worked for them. Because, of course, a disease that is transmitted from human to human and can be transmitted in this means that have been defined, the easiest way of breaking the chains remains in making sure that it doesn't move from person to person. And the simple way of doing it is this ABCD that has been rolled out, which is a sing-song in our system now by both NCDC and everybody. And it's not so difficult to obey these rules, as far as I'm concerned. Face mask, you can just do a homemade face mask with your clothes. Use this whenever you're outside. Be conscious of this physical distancing. Don't come too close. Do washing from time to time of hands and designated areas. Maintain hygiene. And it's going to help us. You don't have to spend much in order to be able to abide by this. Before you move to the second level of treatment and other things, and people searching for vaccination and all those. But this is the primary step that needs to be taken. And I think even our orientation agencies have to step up their games and have modification in their strategy in order to be able to permeate into the populace. Because as far as they are concerned, for a lot of people, it is not a reality that is being propagated as far as they're concerned. They feel that everything is normal. So we can't get tired of talking and get tired of transmitting this information until we get results.
Okay. Dr. Shokefun, you're a geneticist, right?
Okay.
What role is our genetic framework on the continent playing in all of this? Again, there are those who are concerned that we might not be getting the actual numbers. So call that a question of ignorance or gathering of test results. But the role of genetics, the genetics of the African, is it playing any role in numbers?
Well, it's been found out that the malaria belt, the equatorial malaria belt, has some element of resistance to the virus. And that's the reason why, to a large extent, we are not coming down as much as we have in other places. We have other things like the health of our lungs. We have less number of smokers than we have in Italy, for instance. And the virus deals with the ACTH channels. So when you smoke for a very long time, you are compromised. Not many of us are smokers. We don't have a population that is aging like they have in Italy. Italy has the second largest aging population in the world. So this is a critical consideration in susceptibility to the virus. These are some critical considerations that we will need to check using, finite research, genomics, and all that, to check the cascade of immunity, and the reasons why we are not actually coming down as we have in the developed world. This is critical. For Nigeria, I think we also need faster testing. We must have a way of testing it gives a thing that gives result in about 45 minutes, thereabout. The QQ-PCR has just been, developed. The CRIPSR system is also currently, being used in India. In 40 minutes, you have results and all that, so that the penetration of testing can be deeper in principle.
Yes, we have this bit of our genetics playing a role, the
Yes.
positive role, so to speak here. But the question of testing and the population, if government takes testing into the population, mass testing, do you think it will make any difference? Because right now, there are people reportedly coming down with ailments similar, having similar symptoms to the COVID-19, but
Not generalized testing, contact tracing and then testing. You must have come in contact with somebody who is infected before you come down. So, I will not, for instance, go to my village in Agowe to go and test somebody who has not come in contact with an infected person. But contact, yes. Yes.
what's the guarantee that, how do I know Alero doesn't have the virus? So
You don't.
I don't.
You don't.
Exactly. I don't. And we're here. And for one reason or the other, I might even come close to have contact and then I move away.
Yeah.
I might just be here because I'm asymptomatic and then I probably have it and I'm passing it on.
The element of being asymptomatic is another thing entirely. That's another kettle of fish entirely. You are asymptomatic, it doesn't mean you cannot transmit it to somebody who is more susceptible to the thing. But I'm saying that contact tracing is very important, especially when the person comes down. For instance, if you have tested somebody and the person is positive, you want to trace all persons that he has come in contact with and then also test them to see that they are not infected. So contact tracing after detecting that the person is positive is the most important thing to do.
And Dr. Shukefo, in all of this, the doctors are on strike.
Well, that's the country we have found ourselves. I wouldn't imagine that in my wildest dreams. Why would we allow doctors to go on strike? When you have seen the devastation that the virus can cause in even developed countries that have the wherewithal to take care of the health.
Do you think the authorities are not taking this matter seriously?
I wouldn't conclusively say that because you do not also see the other side. But I think that there's just something not right about it. If I were Minister of Labor, I would have done everything humanly possible to make sure that that strike does not start or commence.
He'll probably tell you that he's done everything humanly possible. But Prof. Sibekwe, this matter of many people not taking this situation seriously, including even some people in government circles, what can be done to make that difference? I know you talked about orientation agencies and all that, but what else can be done so that everyone is more aware? This morning, someone was telling me of the situation he had in a bus just yesterday evening. What do we do?
You see, information is power, and it still boils down to passing on the right information to the right people in the right manner and at the right time. So when all these things fit in, you will realize that majority will fall in line. Basically, one of the problems here is a lot of misconception that is still living within and around our society here in the country. Unfortunately, a lot of people have associated with some stigma. Stigmatization is ongoing right now, whereby you see people going into hiding, even those who have symptoms that highly suggest that they may be having this disease, including educated people, funny enough. people who should know better and be able to guide others. You see them living in denial. And that is why a lot of underground work needs to be done to demystify this disease. We should keep on, passing on this message that this is not a death sentence. It's not that you're reckless that made you to get this illness. It's not as if you have wronged the gods to be among those who test positive for this illness. So once we're able to demystify this, and individuals can voluntarily, show up when they have symptoms and related symptoms, that's going to go a long way in helping. And again, the government has a very big role to play, as I said, and indeed each and every one of us. Now, for instance, you talk of palliative. We know that some time ago we're distributing food and all those, very fine, which is a way of supporting people. As I said, is a disease of both nature and nurture. So that nurture aspect is very important. But there is an underlying problem also. You realize that those who have chronic illnesses are those who are even more susceptible to this. When you talk of hypertensive diseases, you talk of diabetes, you talk of asthma and related illnesses, which on every normal day, a lot of Nigerians, ranging into millions, suffer from this. So we must do everything to support such people. So when you're talking of palliative, you should not just stop at food. That was why I voluntarily went to the house when I learned last time that there was a debate, on issue of essential drugs. I went there to make a personal presentation, unsolicited, because I felt it's very important. Because whereas you make these essential drugs available and affordable to help individuals in stabilizing their system and treating these illnesses, which predisposes to contracting this disease, then you must have contributed a lot into curtailing the illness. But beyond this, you should also not allow our system to go into limbo, into confusion of any sort, especially the health sector, which is like the tripod upon which every forward-moving nation sits on. There's no reason whatsoever why doctors should be allowed, and indeed health workers, to go on strike for any reason whatsoever. It takes two to tango. It is all about negotiation. Even after World War, you need Georgia to come to a round table. And you look at even what the resident doctors were asking for on behalf of all the health professionals in the country. These are mainly what government has voluntarily come out to promise the entire nation some months ago, taking a clue from what is happening in every part of the country. You must protect these health workers. You have to give them the necessary insurance. You have to provide the consumables that they need to protect themselves and also protect the patients and people around them. We're talking of escalation of infections. Hospital-based infections could be highly contributory to this, because when the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, they don't protect themselves well, they can even be medium for transmitting this to patients who are coming to the hospital to, procure other forms of treatment. So it really needs a holistic look into solving this problem. And we must look at every angle. You talk of the various routes, like the National Road Transport Workers Union. They have a very big role to play. They have to educate their members towards the sensibility in what we are talking about, ensuring that you don't jam-pack people in your vehicle. They carry two in front for the small vehicles and two behind and one in front. There's reason for this. And if there has to be a marginal increase in the fare to ensure that this happens. And of course, government may still do more in the area of petrol. We know that the price has been coming down, to give succor to these transport workers, so that we will not end up transmitting this in the bid of commuting and transporting our populace. So we have to look in various areas. The churches, the mosque, they have big role to play, and indeed each and every one of us.
Okay, thank you, Professor. And then let me bring it back to you, Dr. Shokefun. You doctors often tell us that this virus has no legs. It is human beings who carry it around. And there are lockdowns in states. There's not supposed to be, well, most states have locked down their states, no interstate travel. in principle. But Nigerians are still traveling. So let's look at the role of law enforcement in all of this. I heard the story of how a Nigerian traveling from Abuja actually was able to hire a Mopol officer for 40,000 to escort him all the way from Abuja to Lagos. And he arrived safely in Lagos from Abuja by road in the season of interstate lockdown. So people are still moving very freely from state to state and carrying this virus with them. What is wrong with Nigerians, please? Why are we not listening and doing what we're supposed to do so that we don't endanger our lives?
Well, we seem to push everything to the feet of the government at all times, which is wrong. You hear people say, yes, yes.
Do what we're supposed to do.
I'm saying the same thing. At most times, you just
You
hear
are
people,
saying government. I'm saying the people.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah. At most times, we tend to blame the government at all times, whereas we also have our own fair share of the blame. If they say there shouldn't be any movement, there's no reason why anybody should be going around, especially when it's not about getting the person to the hospital or getting some pregnant women to where she's going to give birth and all that. So lockdown should be total lockdown, unless there is an emergent reason to begin to move around. But there are two sides to every coin. You know, the man who allows himself to be used as some escort from Abuja should also be disciplined to forestall any other person doing that. The problem we have in the country is that people do things and they get away with it. And once you can, one person can get away with it, all other persons will continue to attempt it. In Italy, they said total lockdown. You are only allowed out if you had very, very emergent reasons to go out, although there were palliatives. So you really had no reason to want to go out. So, these are the two sides that the government must also balance. You can't keep people indoors when they are hungry. It's difficult, especially those who are dependent on daily income.
So what do we do now as we wind down? What do we do? So far, NCDC has tested 108,548 tests have been
Out of
conducted.
200 million, that's shallow.
Okay,
Very,
agreed.
very shallow.
Agreed. So while we're saying NCDC, do more tests, do more tests, do more tests, what should we be doing?
In principle, people should be sensitized. People should be educated. People should be enlightened. They should be told that the thing is real, and they must be made to see it. I'll give you an example. While I lived in Hong Kong, there's a particular mosquito that transmits the chikungunya virus. Once I see it in my room, I must kill it before I go to bed, because I can see it. With the virus, it's a bit different because people can't see it. But they must be told that to transmit it, you all need human contact. And dispersion is such that you don't see. When I sneeze, you don't know what is in the aerosol that comes out of me. So, in principles, education is very, very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prof, in closing, what should we do?
Thank you very much. I can say that any country that wants to move forward sits on a she. The S there stands for security, H is health, and E is education. So these are three areas that we must harness. And the soul of this she is the health, which is in the middle, seated in the middle. So on the part of government and each and every one of us and every public spirited individual, we must invest massively into our health space. This is very important and very key. Both preventative and treatment-wise, we must invest massively into the health. Security, the point that you raised earlier, is it not about our security agents? Enforcement of rules and regulations is about security and also guiding and protecting each and every one of us. We have to look inwards into this area and bring sanitization, serious one, into the system, discipline into the system to ensure that our security works very well. And education, we can never get tired of this, inclusive massive enlightenment program that will permeate into the fabrics of our hinterlands and indeed get to each and every one of us, Nigerians. in language that we understand best.
Thank
Don't we
you, Professor
utilize
Titus Ibekwe, Professor of Otorhinolaryngology. He joined us from our studio in Abuja. And we had Dr. Lushola Shokefun, lecturer of genetics, Lagos State University, who was with us in our studio in Lagos. Thank you both gentlemen very much for coming to share your thoughts with us this morning. Sorry, we ran out of time, Professor. That's how it is on live television. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation in just a moment. Do stay with us.